Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bxb'S Bits and Bobs, episode 60. It's our 2018 Game of the Year show, and with me, as always, my compatriot in crime, my other half, Richard.
Good day.
Here he is. He's looking revved up. We are recording live at 11 a.m. on New Year's Day. Like that is some dedication. That's why I'm in dark glasses. I mean,
it's
Richard,
dedication, or we're the biggest losers going, right?
I think probably a bit of that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what do you mean biggest losers though? I'm coming to you with a hangover. I had a banging last night of sitting in with the wife playing Rock Band and drinking whiskey.
Is that what
so? I mean, yeah.
Shall I tell you what I did? Mine is
Go for it.
the saddest New Year ever. I was trailing on the Xbox gamer score leaderboard for December by several hundred points yesterday. So I spent the closing hours of the year getting back to the top of the leaderboard. So I've done it. That is my achievement.
So this is a leaderboard just amongst your own friends.
Yeah.
It's not like
it's not like global or anything, but
no.
Yeah, amongst my friends, I always like to be top of the list.
Yeah, you are the maddest achievement hunter. I don't even try to come close to that, man. It's just like I sometimes look at those boards because I think they're a fun little addition to Xbox. Actually, how that works, like, it just makes that little bit of a competitive edge.
Yeah,
just there, always there. Keep an eye on it. But no, I'm happy if I'm in the top 10 generally, because we've got some hardcore gamers on our list from back in the day, back in the Xbox days. Some of those boys still go well hard onto those achievements, and you're one of them. You are crazy for your achievements. Oh my god, what's your total gamer score right now?
272, I think.
272,000. Approaching 300,000. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm coming up to 150. So it's like I'm happy with that. I'm happy I broke 100,000. But what were you on? Like 16 years of service? Something like that. 15, 16.
That. Yeah.
Well,
I got did you get the year of Xbox thing?
The horribly broken one that told everybody they were in the top 1% of everything.
Oh, right. Did it tell everyone?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it told me that I'd increased my gamer score by 22% this year.
Jesus. I wonder if that's true. I mean, you have
probably right. It's probably
you've been going hard, man.
Yeah.
You have been going hard into it's going to come up as we look back at the year, but one of the best features for that is Game Pass, man. It's just like it's giving you the ability to do that like never before. So yeah, I mean, so this show we're going to have a little chat about the year that's gone, and then we're going to look forward to the year that's coming in games and in Bxb developments. But let's before we get into the games, any big films that stood out for you? Did you go and see any movies over Christmas, for example? I went to see the Edge of the Spider-Verse film, the or whatever it's called, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, something like that.
We haven't been over Christmas. We are going to go on Friday, so
please go and see that film, Richard.
Maybe we'll see that.
Please, like, honestly, it is an amazingly incredible film. It's one of the best of the year. Like, really? It will absolutely blow your mind.
I saw the trailer, and I don't know, the style kind of annoyed me.
I think it's really impressive what they do. Like, you need to see it. Yeah, you're not the only person that said they were put off by the trailer. I was talking to a friend who's really into his Spider-Man. He's like 4 frames per second animation. I don't like it. And it's like, trust me, it's a very deliberate choice, and it is incredibly good filmmaking what they do.
Yeah, that's what put me off is the sort of odd, weird frame rate. It's just obviously deliberately done for a reason, but I couldn't understand it.
It will all make sense.
Yeah, I'm hearing good things about it, so
it's stunning. It's stunning. I mean, that also what we also had this year. While we're talking superheroes, have you seen Aquaman?
No. That's a possibility for this Friday.
Not bad. Spider-Verse is definitely better. Obviously, we had Avengers this year, Infinity War, which is a complete stonker, like incredible. We got Endgame coming in mere months, which is this huge, final point for that storyline for the Avengers stuff, which is very exciting. And obviously before that, we've got Captain Marvel. What about outside of the superhero genre? About outside of the blockbusters? Any movies like stick on your radar, make you go this year?
You know what? There must be stuff, but I haven't been to the cinema for a few months, and I can't remember the last time I went. But probably Netflix stuff is what I've been more into. So that new Sandra Bullock one was pretty good. Bird Box.
I haven't watched it yet. I've heard it. I've heard very mixed things. It's another one of those situations where the critics have been quite hard on it, and yet the average viewer absolutely seems to love it. And it had like was it ridiculous statistic, like 45 million accounts have already started
45
watching
million
it.
views in the first week.
Incredible. So I think I'm gonna have to check that out. It's like I haven't seen Venom yet, and I didn't see Venom off the back of how negative the critical response was. And I think maybe this is going to maybe lead into a little bit about how we're changing things perhaps in Bxb, because the critics seem to be further and further from the mark, don't they? About what people actually want to see and enjoy in 2018 and into 2019, and it's creating a really strange negativity towards critical response, because they just seem to be missing it. They seem to be missing what people actually enjoy. You know what I mean? It's a strange thing, isn't it?
I think it goes hand in hand with how people are enjoying things. So, like with the example of Bird Box, if I'd gone to the cinema to see that, I probably wouldn't be so up on it. It's not a fantastic film. I mean, it does have a vibe of someone saw The Quiet Place and thought, that with eyes would work. But it's kind of okay for a Netflix film, and that's the difference, isn't it? People pay their subscription anyway. If something decent comes along like that, then there's nothing lost watching it, and it's a good ride while you're in it. So
it's annoying because I'm sat here scratching my head here, thinking deeply as to what smaller films have really stood out to me, and I'm really struggling to come up with stuff, because it's I know I've seen stuff this year.
Yeah,
I know I've seen stuff that's really stood out. However, there's so much stuff.
Prepare. Is that good?
Yeah, so well, off the top of our heads, that's the nature of who we are. That's how we do things. Who has time to really think deeply nowadays about anything? Oh god, that's so depressing. And also, who wants to think deeply about so many things that have happened in 2018? Man, 2019 has to be better, doesn't it? For like people, the globe, the world, the UK, default, everything. Doesn't it have to be?
2019 is going to be the worst so far.
I think the bar is so low. Surely it's going to be better. Surely.
Wait till March, mate. Wait till March.
No deal, Brexit. Yeah, it's going to be great. Can't wait. But yeah, let's not dwell on that too much. We're here to talk about the good things of the year, like
Indeed.
how amazing the world is right now. How the environment's doing. No, let's not talk about the environment. But so yeah, films. Any other things you wanted to touch upon from the year, like entertainment wise, that really stood out?
No,
there's not. It's fine.
You have sprung this on us, haven't you?
Yes.
We were going to talk about Game of the Year.
We are going to talk about.
We're going to talk about a film. So yeah, there's probably stuff that I'm missing.
There's loads. You kick yourself after we finish recording. Like, I'll be, oh my god, how did I not mention that? That film was amazing. Like that. Oh yeah, it's gonna happen. I'm like to be honest, the best thing I've seen recently is I've just rewatched Band of Brothers, and it's like that's still fantastic. It's probably
better now, isn't it? Knowing that everyone in it went on to be megastars.
Yeah, it's weird. You got Simon Pegg, James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, bloody David Schwimmer. There's the list is just crazy. The guy from Office Space, which he'll always be for me. He's like the lead, isn't he? One of the guys from Office Space, and it's just like, yeah, that is a fantastic production. It's incredibly emotionally manipulative, and it definitely skews things to tell a particular narrative. It's not trying to really represent things all the time in an honest way. It's trying to tell an emotional story, but at the same time, a lot of the events that happen in it are true, and therefore,
there's get the backing of the people actually there. I mean, they're at the end of the.
But it is also a Spielberg production, so you have to like balance the two out. But no, it's a fabulous piece of television, and if you've never seen it, which would surprise me, by all means check it out. It's on on demand on Sky and DVD and Blu-ray. Just go see Band of Brothers. It's so good. But yeah, that's kind of what I've done over Christmas. I'm watching The American Office for the first time. I'm up to like season 5 of that, so I can't believe I'm so late to that. It's fantastic. Good. It's amazing. No, it's amazing. I just had the Idris Elba stuff, and I was just like, what? Idris Elba's in this? What? It's crazy, man. It's crazy the people that show up in that. But let's talk about games. How do you want to do this? Should we touch on the things that bummed us out first, so we can get into the good stuff afterwards?
We can do that. I mean, I don't want to focus on that too much.
There's not a lot.
I was watching Jim Sterling's 10 worst games of the year video yesterday.
How to depress yourself? Yeah,
I know, and I thought, well, is that the vibe we want?
So I'm curious, what kind of stuff did Jim have? I mean, he doesn't seem to like anything. So
well, that's the thing with Jim Sterling. But yeah, there's some obvious things on there. Fallout 76.
Well, that's my one. That's my big one that I wanted to mention. That it's not just the game is bad; it's everything Bethesda's done around it. Yeah. And it's this huge clusterfuck of an embarrassment, which makes me incredibly worried about Starfield. and that's kind of done this thing to taint their entire legacy almost as well, which is really just, how do you fuck it up so royally? I mean, it's impressively bad. Well, anything else Jim mentioned that I may have forgotten?
Metal Gear Survive was on there.
It's fine. I played that. I reviewed that. It's fine. That game, it's not a Metal Gear game, but it's perfectly fine.
That's kind of the problem, isn't it?
It's perfectly fine mechanically and everything. I mean, that's the problem with Fallout. It doesn't work. It's not a case of it not inhabiting that world, because it inhabits a Fallout world very well. It's just that it's a mess and unplayable. So, anything else?
Nothing that would be our sort of area, I suppose. More PC stuff. I think that's more what he's focused on. So we're not about that too much, are we? We're more about console stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, what we can talk about PC stuff if you want.
I can't remember what else was on there. So yeah, let's move on from Jim Sterling.
All right, that's the Jim Sterling segment. Best Jim Sterling video of the year. His 10 worst games of the year. Well done, Jim. You win that award. Did you want to just call out a game then, and just talk about something you really enjoyed?
Things that I enjoyed.
Yeah, just go for it. Just dive in, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of overlap here.
Before it gets buried by lots of other things, I think we should talk about Celeste, because it's.
Well, I'm about to play it because it's just gone into Games with Gold.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be playing that probably later on today, if not like in the next week or so. Finally trying that out. But yeah, I mean, it's meant to be amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing, and it's totally up my sort of alley. It's exactly the sort of thing that I would play. So old school 2D platformer, test of patience and skill, in the vein of Super Meat Boy. It demands repetition, but doesn't feel like it's punishing you. It is always your fault sort of vibe. The idea is, Celeste is the mountain that you have to climb. The mountain is both it's a physical mountain, obviously, but it's also a metaphor for your protagonist's mental state. So she's suffering from depression or anxiety, and climbing the mountain is her trying to recover from the demons that sort of haunt her. And it's done in a sort of cartoony way. It's not too heavy, but there's a suite of characters there that you really start to care about, and you want her to overcome the challenges that are before her. But just in a gameplay sense, it's as simple as jumping against a wall. You've got a limited amount of stamina to hold on to the wall until you have to drop off, and it's just how you maintain your stamina and your momentum to climb various 2D challenges in a platforming environment. It's drawn in a sort of old school, what's the word? Pixel art style, and brilliant chiptune music. The soundtrack is really, really great. To the point that sometimes you'd be glad to fail a level just so you could listen to it a bit more. It's that good.
Wow. And I mean, what's interesting for me is that I've heard it's got this incredible mixture of, tight, well-designed gameplay, but also a really emotional narrative and story.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm like, wow. I mean, because Super Meat Boy's got that great gameplay, but there's no story, there's no narrative hook there. So I am really curious to see how those two mix. Yeah, in a genre you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be within, like that kind of narrative. So yeah,
no,
I'm up for that.
It doesn't overplay it either. I mean, it's in there as much as it needs to be, and it doesn't get in the way. You can imagine that might sort of impede the pace of that sort of game, where it's all about quick restarts of fail and try again very quickly, and it does allow you to do that. But there are periods in between where the challenges aren't so difficult, and it just gives you that bit of breathing space to hear the characters talk and to experience what they're thinking without it ruining the pace. It's really well balanced.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna touch on something that this year was really important to me and was like kind of a moment of, now I get it, and that's PSVR. Like I was a bit later to this than yourself, but oh man, that's great. Like I've loved it. Things like the Wipeout Omega collection was absolutely fantastic in that.
Wipeout's incredible, isn't it, in VR?
And one of my real strong contenders for Game of the Year, which is Tetris Effect.
Yes.
It's great, you know, without it. It's a beautiful game without it, you know, in 4K, on your high-res TV set, you know. But when you're in there with the headphones in, with the volume turned up, and you know that incredible combination of gameplay, music, and visuals that puts you in this otherworldly environment, and then, you know, was it synesthesia, isn't it, is the term?
Yes.
That where everything comes together, that transports you into this experience. And I'm seeing Tetris Effect showing up at the top of some very reputable places for their Game of the Year, and I can absolutely see why that experience is perhaps knocking things like that are more obvious Game of the Years, like God of War and Spider-Man, off of that top spot, because it's the kind of game everybody understands. Tetris, if you're a gamer, if you haven't played it, you know about it. And I'd be amazed if you haven't played it at some point in your gaming life, because it's been on everything. And this is the best Tetris has ever been since the original, in my opinion. It's almost a new experience, but by offering this thing that you're so familiar with, it lets you get lost in the experience. And it really is special. I mean, if you have a PSVR, you owe it to yourself to get Tetris Effect and to play that game as soon as you possibly can, because it is proper amazing.
Yeah, I nearly got it, but it's still too expensive, isn't it? I know.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's worth every penny. I mean,
know, but yeah, I know what you're saying. Game of the Year material is definitely up there.
It's only 30 quid. We're talking Game of the Year, and it's 30 quid. So I mean, like,
35
really,
quid, but it is still Tetris. You know,
but it isn't though. But it isn't. It's like, yeah, you fundamentally the gameplay is Tetris, but the experience isn't. I don't know. I don't know what it is. You especially as someone who loves music like you do, and we have similar musical tastes in many ways. We overlap, and yeah, I think you're talking about how you would die in Celeste just so you could hear the music. I mean, you're going to just want to play stages over and over and over again because the music is, with the combination with those visuals in VR, is incredible. I mean, like, it's truly special. I got my wife to play it, and she was like, she was impressed as well. She's not really into the VR stuff. A bit off put by the whole. She gets a bit motion sick and stuff like that. She's not a hardcore gamer, so it's the kind of thing you don't push through if you can avoid it, which is absolutely understandable. But no, she found it like really impressive. The bit she didn't like is there's like a level transition at the end, and you kind of corkscrew into the board and swoosh around, and she didn't like how that made her feel a bit queasy, shall we say. But
it takes some getting used to.
It does.
You're right. If you're not into games, then why would you get used to it?
Yeah, exactly. Why put yourself through it? Yeah. You know, this horrible, uncomfortable experience. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna suffer through because supposedly it's cool. But no, it's Tetris Effect is amazing. But in general, the hardware of VR, I don't think VR is the future. And I've got into a few arguments with other gamers about this online and stuff. I don't think VR as it is the future. I think perhaps it needs to really evolve in a big way, as well as a price point drop if it's going to be widely accepted. I mean, the PSVR itself is a fun, gimmicky piece of hardware, and I think games like Tetris Effect and Wipeout and Astrobot, you know, there are titles now starting to appear that really justify its existence, but there needs to be a lot more, and it needs to be a lot friendlier to the user. Before, it needs to be wireless, it needs to be more lightweight, it needs to be, you know, augmented reality elements need to be kind of as standard, so you don't have to constantly be taking it off and on, so you don't have to feel that sense of like being lost from the environment you're in. You know, there is a lot of sort of improvements, and whether or not we're going to get them, that's the question. I mean, already we're seeing the fact that the PlayStation VR is probably the most successful piece of hardware, and it's also one of the lower end ones. So if people aren't paying the money to help develop things, to help push the technology forward, then what do we get? Do we get a Kinect situation where there's a few great experiences that work really well on this piece of sort of emergent hardware, but because it's not being widely supported and adopted, it could just disappear come the next generation, you know? So we're in a weird place with VR right now. I think it needs to take some big steps forward, but I've been won over by it this year. The PSVR has been a really cool piece of hardware.
There are people saying it should be dead by now. And like you say, we've got titles like Astrobot, Rescue Mission, Tetris Effect, like high profile stuff that's really good quality coming out in 2018.
Well, I think Tetris Effect being at the top of 2 lists that I've seen, Eurogamer and Giant Bomb's Game of the Years, right? That will help with the visibility of the platform, which means more people will pick up a PlayStation VR, because it is a PlayStation VR exclusive game for VR, and it's only on the PS4 in general. And more people will pick it up, and it's been some really good cheap prices recently in the holiday season. But the question is, because this is the lowest end, because this is a console exclusive, are PlayStation going to be the ones pushing the development of this hardware? I'm just not convinced that's where PS5 will be going. I really don't know. Nobody knows at this point, but it's hard to say, isn't it, Rich? It's hard to say.
Well, I certainly don't think that they're doing it wrong.
No,
it's the right thing to do to push down prices and get the devices out there. The best possible technological solution isn't always the most successful. I mean, you look at how the handheld game market evolved. No one would have thought the Game Boy would be the thing that really made it explode, because it was a terrible device.
That's a very good point. Yep.
But it was cheap. It sort of did what it was designed to do. Other things arguably did it better. So there's the Lynx, there's Game Gear, stuff like that on paper were better machines, but nothing got the reach of the Game Boy. I think it needs that mass market push with something cheap and something that people can easily get in their living rooms, which isn't a PC, it's a PS4. That is the way it's going to go. And when you say it's not the future, I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean by that in terms of whether VR replaces traditional games. I don't think that will ever happen.
That's what the evangelists will tell you.
That's never going to happen.
Tell you, yeah, that will be living in Ready Player One in the next 20 years. You know, things like that is what is being said. I think, you're talking about. I mean, it's a very good point with the Game Boy. However, I mean, that is a piece of technology, handheld gaming, that reached its limitations. You know, you could say the Vita isn't really, which is the newest piece of hardware in that area, isn't really that different to the Game Boy, is it? It's just nicer visuals, a bit more complicated input. But the whole idea that VR is gonna get smaller and smaller, it's gonna bring in augmented reality elements, it's gonna become just a pair of glasses you can wear, that kind of dream. We aren't going to get there unless a lot more money is spent in the field developing the hardware, and I'm not sure it will, because like Tetris is obviously a success. The PSVR sales have made it a success already. Are PlayStation going to want to innovate it, or are they just going to be happy with where it is? It's who knows what they're going to do. Is it going to be in every box with the PlayStation? Next generation, is that what they're going to do? Is it going to be this cut down amazing piece of AR enabled hardware that ships with every PlayStation 5 for only $1,000? What's the goal?
If it was me, what I'd be doing is not making it better, high resolution lenses and all that stuff. I would be cutting down the size of it, like you say, try and make it more streamlined, wireless, and just more like a pair of glasses than it is like a helmet.
I picked up Arizona Sunshine in the sale on VR, and I'm never going to argue this is a great game. Never going to argue this is a great game. It's low resolution, style. It's a zombie shooter. It's pretty standard fare. However, even then, in that hardware, with those lack of polys, with the screen door effect and all of those detractions, I've got my aim controller, which is the most ridiculous piece of accessory you'll ever see outside of VR. However, when you're in VR and it feels like you're holding that assault rifle and it feels like you're actually getting attacked by the zombies, it still gets your heart pumping.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It still works and has an effect, even in those less impressive experiences. So I think, why try and necessarily massively improve it? I think they could improve res for the PS5 version, things can get better without the price getting ridiculous, you know, and it can, you know, the form factor can get smaller, and, you know, they try and keep the price point the same, but, you know, it doesn't have to be a huge leap, does it? It could just be some quality of life improvements for them at the moment. I'm curious. I don't think VR is dead. I still consider it more of a gimmick than a game changer, as it were. But yeah, this year is the year I came on board, so that's definitely on my list for like gaming experience of the year, right there, definitely. What would you like to talk about, Richard?
What else is on my list?
Quite a few things that are also on my list. So,
well, I'm thinking we save some of the bigger stuff towards the end and just
however
give a
you want
shout
to do
out
it.
to some smaller titles.
Sure, man.
Yoku's Island Express was good. Did you see this year?
Not really. Is it a 3D platformer?
Nah.
Is this 2D. The marble game?
Yeah.
I've heard about the marble game. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. I wasn't expecting much from it, but it was on sale, and I actually got a lot out of it. You're a dung beetle, not you.
All right, calm down.
So you play a dung beetle, and he pushes a ball around, and it's a really clever mechanic. So you knocking about this island, right? And the island has got various dips and ramps and whatever to push this ball around on, and even pinball sections. So he'll go into a tunnel, and then suddenly you'll be knocking him around with these sort of flippers in a pinball style. And it's got a sort of vibe of that Sonic game. There's a Sonic pinball game that came out back in the day, wasn't there? So it's a bit like that, but actually good. So there's all sorts of characters littered about the island that will ask you to complete subquests for them. Lots of collectibles to pick up. And it doesn't do anything especially new beyond the ball mechanic, which is itself quite a good hook. And it gets enough out of it to justify the rest of the game, which is a bit more rote. But, you know, that just makes it a really accessible game with a fresh new angle. And I enjoyed it all the way through. Completed it 100%. But, you know, that's not saying much for me. I tend to do that anyway. But yeah, really good 2D platformer with, in 2018, a new idea, pretty much. So that doesn't come along in platforming very often. So
it doesn't. No, I mean, it doesn't come along in games very often, mate. I mean, to be honest, I was just waxing lyrical about Tetris Effect. That's a Tetris game in 2018. So I mean, you know, there's not a lot of. But I mean, I'm going to quickly touch on two more then, you know, Ubisoft's latest open worlds, Far Cry 5 and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. They're two of the games I've put the most time into this year, like a huge amount of time into both. Definitely more into ACO than Far Cry 5, but they're both very, very well constructed worlds. Both beautiful worlds, absolutely stunning to look at. I think Far Cry 5 definitely gets a bit tired a bit quicker than Assassin's Creed Odyssey did, but at the same time, you know, for doing one of them, it's definitely better than 4. You know, I wish they'd committed more to the concept of the far right political dissident cultist element and really doubled down on the politics of that. However, it's Ubisoft and they're always really careful to avoid politics, which is kind of a shame because they often pick subject matter and setting that would be a really good way of actually exploring and really sort of delving into the politics of those situations. But then they then always back out. So it's like, why are you picking these provocative areas or subjects or anything to only then, you know, decide not to do it? However,
it's very frustrating because that's the game I wanted to play, and you know, having them pitch it as some sort of analogy to current ascendance of the far right. That's something I was interested in, and for it not to be there, it just kind of put me off the game, you know.
Did you play it in the end? I can't remember. No, you didn't. I mean, it's worth picking. I mean, it's probably on sale now, isn't it? I imagine it's in the winter sales that are running until just after today for most places. I mean, it's a very good open world first person shooter. There is a lot of fun to be had in there, especially with your AI companions. It's great fun in co-op, Rich. We could do that. That'd be really cool. But yeah, it doesn't quite go far enough. obviously they've got this new. I can't even remember what it's called, but it looks so generic. They're kind of, you know, doing that thing where they reuse the map, reuse the engine of Far Cry 5, and releasing in next year. There's like a post-apocalyptic Far Cry game coming out, which looked a lot like they saw the visuals for Rage 2 and went, "Oh, post-apocalypse with color, we can do that." But in a way, we're doing Game of the Year, so I'll spoil it. The end of Far Cry is interesting because do you know how it ends, Rich?
No.
So it's a bit of a it's kind of when you're playing it, it's a letdown, but actually thematically, it's kind of brave of them. So the whole idea is that Joseph Seed is this far right wing cultist, and the idea is that he wants everybody to prepare for the end of days when all the nukes go off and stuff, and then the nukes go off. You don't stop it from happening. The end of days happens. So this sequel game that's coming out is going to be set in that it's set in the same world because the apocalypse happened. So it's kind of like, you know, you're saying it's weird, isn't it, Rich? Because you're like, we didn't go far enough, but then it kind of does at the end. It kind of does go that extra mile. And it's a bit of it's weird because playing it, you're the hero and you want to stop it from happening, but they don't let you.
I suppose what I'm missing from that is I would want them to have their own comment on that situation rather than just show that happening.
Yeah,
talk about it happening. Why is that happening? Who caused it? What can we do to stop it? I value that sort of discussion in games, and we don't get it enough. So I thought that was a missed opportunity. Absolutely.
But let me move on to the game that I would put in my top 3 or 5 at least for the year, which is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. They're doing this thing with Assassin's Creed where, you know, it's been running a long time now. There's been a lot of Assassin's Creed games, and they've realized you can't keep doing the same thing. So they're moving away from these third-person action-adventure games, which is what Assassin's Creed originally was. You know, the stealth, the assassinations, and they're just going into historically set action role-playing territory now. Yeah. And honestly, they do it incredibly well. This is all set in ancient Greece. It's during the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta. You play as a mercenary, Amistios. And you can play as Cassandra or the dude. I recommend you don't play as the dude. Cassandra's an amazing character. I have absolutely loved experiencing this story with her. They're also massively supporting it with DLC because there isn't going to be an Assassin's Creed next year. So they're bringing out additional content all through 2019. And this is what Ubisoft is doing now. The games as a service model is something that they've really doubled down on with Siege and their other titles. And then they're bringing that kind of emphasis to AC as well. And I really like the direction they're taking Assassin's Creed. The purists out there would definitely argue against, you know, lots of random loot drops and customization options. But I think it's a great power fantasy. It's kind of this exact opposite to Red Dead when it comes to gameplay. It's fast, it's frenetic, you are basically a demigod. And you get to just, you know, wreck house across ancient Greece, and it's a huge map, a gorgeous world. It looks fantastic. It's fun to play, and I've really enjoyed my time with Assassin's Creed a lot more than I did my time with Red Dead, which I fell off of pretty quick, as I kind of knew I would.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in myself for that. We can talk about Red Dead.
Yeah, let's touch on Red Dead.
Neither of us have played it enough to really be credible on this podcast, so everyone can tune out now. But we really should. We should have done better, shouldn't we? But I've only played till chapter. What is it? Chapter 2.
I'm 3, maybe 4. I don't know. I'm a bit further, but not much.
Yeah. So I'm really not far enough into it to comment meaningfully. But the control stuff that people have complained about, I can kind of see it, but I think I'm already used to it. Just a short way into the game. It's just, I don't know. The reason I've not played it enough, it's a weird one. I've not played it enough because it looks so good, and I want to be able to just involve myself in it fully without anything else distracting me. I haven't found a good time to do that, even over Christmas, because there's been too many other distractions. So I don't know when I'm going to play it, but I will play it.
I did that thing where I bought it because it was important to know a bit about it, because that's the thing everybody was talking about, even though I knew Rockstar games aren't for me. They're just never for me. They never grab me. I'm not interested in the way they make games, you know. And this is like them doubling down on all of that. The incredible slow pace, you know, forcing you into this level of immersion, which does work. It's incredibly brave. I also think, though, due to the amount of hype and anticipation, they do get away with some things maybe other games wouldn't. There has been some critical backlash I've seen, you know, more than a few prominent reporters and journalists in the game industry saying, you know, the more they played it, the more they actually disliked the game to the point where they actually hated it by the end.
Really?
You know, so there are people out there that have pushed back against it because there are elements of the pacing, of the repetitive nature of the gameplay as it goes along, with the, you know, ride 20 minutes to get to a place to have a gunfight, with the poor checkpointing. So when you die in the gunfight, you have to ride that 20 minutes again. There's a lot of that. That kind of, yeah, torturous old school game design where Rockstar can get away with it. They can call it a artistic choice. They can, you know, or they, you know, they can give it any excuse they want because it's one of those games that's too big to fail. People anticipated it for so long. They were always going to get the raft of day one, week one, month one sales. So it didn't really matter how bad the game was necessarily by the end of it. And it's a huge game, and a lot of people will probably put 20, 30 hours in. I'm quite interested to see how online develops, and once it's actually fleshed out a bit, I would like to get in there with yourself and with some other friends and, you know, posse up and do all of that. But it sounds like even that's quite difficult and convoluted at the moment, and there's not a lot of content in there anyway. So yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about it, really. I mean, I feel how I always feel about Rockstar games, which is that they have a impressive level of technical development, no doubt about it. They are beautiful to look at. They are often quite dull to play. And then the characterization and the stories do nothing for me.
I'm generally with you on Rockstar because I'm not a great fan of GTA at all. But the original, not the original, Red Dead Redemption, the first game, was fantastic for me. Absolutely loved it from beginning to end. And I couldn't put that down. So I don't know. I know that Red Dead Redemption 2 will get its hooks into me. It's just finding the right time for it.
Yep. And, you know, going into 2019 as we change things, hopefully we can find the time to facilitate that a little bit easier, which will be nice. Okay, looking at my list. I want you, I mean, I know you said you were kind of wanting to leave some of the big stuff towards the end, but I don't really know how long this is going to go anyway. But did you want to talk about God of War? Because I have not played enough of this, and this is like on either #1 spots. It was won obviously the Video Game Awards Best Game of the Year, the Jeff Keighley joint. It's almost always on the #1, #2, or #3 spot for all the outlets and for everybody's personal lists. It's my big hole that I need to go and play some more of this and get this finished. I just haven't had a chance yet. However, I've got one on my list you haven't played, which you should have done. So yeah, you do God of War, and then I'll do mine afterwards.
Okay. God of War. I don't know if we're going to do what our favorite game of the year was. We're going to talk a bit.
Yeah, we can,
aren't we? But
you can do that if you want. I don't mind.
If we were going to do that, God of War is definitely a contender. It's certainly top 3. Just for the way, but the initial reaction to it is this really God of War? Because thematically, it feels very different to the rest of the series, which is very much about gung-ho, machismo, and a lot of sort of boy attitudes and demeaning of women and over-sexualization of female characters and dehumanization of anyone but Kratos himself, a central character.
Who's Kratos?
Yeah, that's his name.
It's Kratos. I've never heard it called Kratos before. It's Kratos. It's Kratos. You always call him Kratos. Okay,
I don't think I've said it out loud before.
It sounds like shit. Kratos.
Okay, Kratos.
Kratos.
Fine.
Does his name not come up very often? I guess it doesn't, does it? If you think about it, especially not in the new one, because most people don't know who he is, so it doesn't come up a great deal. And Dad, I guess, gets mentioned more often. So
yeah, even the kid just gets called Boy. They're not very big on names.
Does he have a name? Actually,
I think he does, but I can't remember it.
Okay,
He just calls him Boy. But yeah, the tone is very different from the original games, and that comes with Kratos having his son around. And from the early trailers, I was dubious that it was going to pan out in the way that they were saying it was, because there was a lot of lingering shots of Kratos like caring for his son and sort of unspoken paternal instincts on show. And I thought, well, that's a different angle, and that it shows a different side to that character. Where it shows a side to that character because he's very two-dimensional before. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And it's not a reboot or anything. It is the same thing. It's just the character has grown and it's showing you something new of him. And I thought that was really interesting. But on top of that, it goes to a different land as well, where no one really knows him, like you say. I've got windy pops. I'm going to belch. Excuse me.
Love it. Live podcast, baby. That's how it rolls.
Shouldn't drink Diet Coke before I go into a long monologue about God of War. But yeah, so he goes to a new place. No one really knows who he is. And they use it as a really good excuse to change a lot about what God of War is. So it's no longer a linear slash 'em up through nice looking environments with increasingly large and ugly beasts just being thrown at you. It gives you much more agency to explore the world, do side quests, subquests, find pickups along the way. Stories relate to you in very clever ways. So you've got the boat that you row between different environments in, with your son with you, and the chats that they have where Kratos tells his son different stories about things that happened before he was born, that sort of flesh out the backstory. Without it needing a cutscene, and it just bridges that gap between gameplay and narrative without any seams at all. And even when there is a cutscene, it segues seamlessly into gameplay. So you've got these amazing action sequences that you're in control of without it even feeling like a quick time event. You know, it's so well designed in terms of giving you that agency as a player, but making maximum cinematic impact at the same time. Nothing else does it. It's such a brilliant production.
I didn't even get to the boat.
No?
So, no, didn't even get to the boat bit. I've heard about it. Don't worry, you didn't spoil it for me. But I think for me, I left off too early, and it was before the combat really kicks into a higher gear, before you start really using Boy as a fighting assistant.
Yes.
You know, I fought a couple of trolls, I think. And then that was about it. so I fought Thor the Stranger.
From the outset, the combat system doesn't feel particularly involved, does it? It feels quite stripped back from the original God of War games. But the more you play it, the more it adds in, and by the end, it does feel like an accomplished combat game that feels true to God of War, but has all that other stuff built around it as well. So it's so well rounded.
Yeah.
Let's go. Play it, mate. You've got to play it.
I've got to do it. I need to do it. I need to put more time into it. I definitely want to. I just haven't. It's just like weird. I'm putting Tetris on instead. I'm playing, you know, various things that have shown up in the sale, you know, and things like that. You know, I'm horribly easily distracted. But I'm going to move us then from one PlayStation exclusive to another PlayStation exclusive. And I know, Richard, this is one that you have got and done basically what I've done, which hasn't found enough time to really get into that. And that is Spider-Man. Spider-Man is absolutely, without a doubt, one of the best games of this year, and easily in my top 5 list. It's got the best traversal in an open world game, because you swing around as fucking Spider-Man, and it feels incredible. Sorry,
I played it this morning.
Played some more this morning.
It's really good. Yeah,
it's so good, isn't it? It feels incredible moving around that city. It feels like it's a really alive place. When you swing down to street level, and you're swinging between like lorries and taxi cabs and jumping off of them as you go around. It's got some problems. It's got very kind of rote open worldy sort of side missiony things, which are a bit basic once you start to delve into them. But what's incredible for a game like this is that it has an amazingly good story that only gets better as it goes along. Great use of ancillary Spider-Man characters. fantastic relationship stuff between Peter and Mary Jane is so well written, so well performance captured. It is. I never thought this. So this is what started me down the road of really getting into Spider-Man. While I'm a big comics fan, Marvel fan as well, never been a Spider-Man fan. So playing this game got me reading some Spider-Man comics, and off of the back of that, I went to see the new Spider-Verse movie, and I'm in now. I'm in. I can see why people love the Spider-Man. He is a great character. He's fallible. He's human. It's a power fantasy that works for every guy ever. It's just fabulously well produced game. The combat feels really good. It's accessible, yet there's enough depth to keep you interested. Yeah, it's just a great game, man. What are your early thoughts on it? You liking it?
I'm comparing it to Sunset Overdrive because it's from the same team. Yeah. And in terms of traversal, that was incredible. I love grinding. I'm not sure it is, honestly.
Oh, I'm not sure it is. I found Sunset a bit fiddly. Having to do things like the ground pound to get the bounce and stuff, and it punished you every time you reached the ground, and I always found it quite difficult to get back off the ground again quickly in Sunset Overdrive, whereas in Spider-Man, especially when you start unlocking powers, you basically never have to touch the ground if you don't want to, and you're just zipping around at 100 miles an hour all the time. It feels more like you're under more direct control in Spider-Man than you did in Sunset Overdrive, because in Sunset, you'd get on a rail and you'd be on a rail, whereas in Spider-Man, you can change direction much more freely at any time.
Did you finish Sunset?
No, I bounced off of it for the traversal mechanics mostly.
Okay, well, you missed the proper game then. I don't want to be that guy, but near the end, not even near the end, but partway through Sunset Overdrive, the controls do open up, and it gives you much greater scope to just keep on rolling on rails, running across walls, never touch the ground at all.
Well, that may be the case. That may be the case. You can't argue that Spider-Man doesn't have a better fucking story, because there was no narrative in Sunset Overdrive worth talking about at all. And the characters in Spider-Man are fantastic.
I found it fun, but I'm not far into the Spider-Man enough to really say. But it's obviously a very well built world. The sort of characterization stuff that I've seen so far, the motion capture, the facial capture is just amazing. Really good.
Really
I think
good.
The world itself is great to traverse. It feels fun to swing around.
Oh yeah.
There's something about traversal mechanics. I always like there to be a bit of an impediment, so it feels better when you do it right. And I'm not sure Spider-Man's quite on the right side of that. It does feel too easy to get around and do everything that you want without any challenge.
That's a weird thing to say, but I can sort of see what you're saying. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Kinda. Like,
you kind of want to feel skilled at doing it rather than it just give you it.
There is definitely traversal in Spider-Man. There are ways of doing it better. I think you maybe haven't really got to that yet. If you're early on, but there's like a horizontal web zip. There's timing to the swinging and the arcs as well, which will give you speed boosts and things like that. And there's combat mechanics that are involved with swinging, which you unlock as you sort of progress through the game as well.
Okay.
So there are things like
I'm trusting that will open up in the same way that Sunset did.
I guess for me, the other problem with Sunset is what drives me through an experience is resonating with characters and story. And I didn't feel that in Sunset. It's kind of like the problem I'm having with God of War. I'm meant to care about this dude's dead wife. I've never met her. Okay. I struggled with the opening to that, to making me care. So
you're supposed to care by virtue of the child losing his mother. That's more of a hook.
I don't have empathy. Empathy's for weak people. We can't have empathy in 2018 in Brexit England. What are you talking about? You've got to get ready to murder on the streets, Richard, to survive. That's what's coming this year, I should say. Just prepare yourself, gird your loins. It's coming.
But joining the gym this month. I'm getting ready.
Gonna Mad Max sort of style it. Yeah, nice. But yes, that's a really impressive experience. It really blew me away this year. I didn't think I was going to enjoy that much. It kind of actually, it made me think of something that one of my biggest disappointments as well. Goddamn platform exclusivity is shit. Even though I have every platform, I still think it's really shitty that people on Xbox don't get to experience Spider-Man and God of War and stuff like that. And yes, they're first-party games. It still sucks. it still sucks. And then the lack of cross-play in multiplayer games as well. PlayStation dragging their feet on that one. And it's like, guys, let's just make games available to people. Yeah.
I don't know. I've not got anything against people making exclusive games for their own platforms. I mean, you know, Spider-Man's their thing. Why wouldn't they do it? And, you know, if people really want it, they'll get a PS4. That's the point, isn't it?
Well, so it's weird, isn't it? Because Insomniac isn't a Sony studio. However, this license to Spider-Man is connected to Sony, for the video games and the movies. So it's kind of like, that sort of ties it to them, which is, I don't know, that's a bit bullshit, isn't it? I mean, like, it wasn't even made by a Sony studio. So if they wanted to make it work, they could have let that get out on Xbox. Yeah, it's not the same as God of War, which is an IP created by Sony. So it's kind of like, you know, they could have had that out there. But, you know, it's
Sony funded, though, isn't it? That's the bottom line. I mean,
every game has to be funded by someone. But it's like, surely it makes the most sense to put it on the most pieces of hardware so you get the most sales and make back the most amount of money. You know what I mean? It's like, doesn't that make sense? So I guess they're trying to use it to drive hardware sales, but you know, at this point in the generation, is that really gonna push a lot of hardware? I don't know. Did you want to throw out another game?
Tomb Raider. Because that comes off the back of that topic, really. So the last Tomb Raider game was famously Xbox exclusive for a while, and that's the kind of exclusivity that I don't agree with. When it's just paid to keep some people from not having it for a time, that's gross.
Yeah.
So gross. PS4 players should have had that ages ago. But anyway, new one. They've solved that problem. It's out on both. Brilliant. Woo! And I'm really glad everyone can play Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and everyone should, because it's the first Tomb Raider of the rebooted run that actually has proper tombs to raid and is much more than a fancy upgraded combat version of Uncharted. It has felt like it's a reaction to Uncharted. It's put a load of combat in there like that had and just made it a bit more visceral. But it does get that side of it right. That's great, but it has been missing the whole purpose of what Lara Croft does, and that's to find treasure and investigate ancient tombs and stuff like that. And this does that so well and seamlessly as well. So it's not like the past two games where it will sort of introduce, right, this is the tomb bit, this is tomb number 3. You just come across stuff. You'll just see a glint of light through a wall and think, hang on, there's something there. And then you'll find that it opens up into this whole other area. And it just feels so richly detailed and huge. Not in the style of like you can compare it to Assassin's Creed and say, well, actually it's nowhere near the scope of those games. But within the confines of quite a linear narrative story, within I suppose there's not very many areas in it if you write down on paper how many different places there are to go in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, but each one is built so well and crafted so expertly with enough stuff in there that you think this is a real place, that it just achieves that perfect balance for me. Assassin's Creed they build great worlds in that, but they often feel like there's space there just for the sake of making it feel like a big place. Everywhere in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, it feels like there's a reason for it to be there, but it doesn't feel like it's been designed.
Oh, I think the difference there, mate, is that Shadow of the Tomb Raider isn't trying to be anywhere real. Whereas when you're trying to recreate Hellenic Greece, yes, there will be times when there are just fields or forests or mountains, that's true. So it's kind of like, I know that part of the world quite well, and having visited some of the islands in that sort of areas that are in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and when you visit them in the game, there is things that you kind of go, while not like exactly one-to-one, that geography, that sort of feel and look is very reminiscent of the reality. So whereas Shadow of Tomb Raider is fake, isn't it? It's all made up.
Well, I'm gonna veer off to Forza Horizon 4 there.
All right, yeah. Let's do Forza. That's both on our list. So
yeah, so that's a game that is supposed to be representing somewhere real, but has the sense to cut it down in a way and change it in a way that makes sense for a video game.
Forza surprised me a bit because I got the impression it was meant to be a representation of the UK, but really it just feels like Scotland for the most part.
Pretty much just Scotland, yeah. And the DLC's Ireland, I think.
Well, no, it's more like a Scottish island. It's more like the Isle of sort of like one of the slightly northern islands, from what I can tell, of Scotland is what they've gone for. Yeah, like extreme weather, and you can see the northern lights off of it, above it, and yeah. So it's meant to be like the what they call like the Shetland. Is that Shetland Islands up that way? Yeah,
right.
I'm not good at my
thought it's, what are those weird land formations in Ireland called, where it's got like hexagonal?
Yes, yeah, fair play. But they've probably stolen some bits. But when it comes to sort of
and it's called Fortune Island.
Yeah, but
so
it's
they've got like pots of gold and shit.
Yeah, no, that's fair too. Yeah, you bring up a fair point. But then again, it has extreme weather, and it has it's very, very rugged. Ireland is a lot more like chill when it comes to geography than what they've done in this island. But so there is a combination. But yeah, clearly the studio was like, where's the dramatic geography? Oh, it's mostly in the north. Fair enough. So other than the odd sort of like pastoral village in that Forza map, it feels a lot more like the Highlands, and Edinburgh's represented and stuff, and there's a lot of that up there. But it's great. Do you want to? I mean, you segued across yourself there, so just let's talk about Forza. Wow, what a game! Absolutely love that game.
Hell of a lot of Forza over Christmas. Forza Horizon 4 specifically, but even bouncing back to the old ones, because this year we had the HD update of Forza Horizon 3, so I'm still well into that 2 years after it came out. They've just done a phenomenal job with the Horizon series and making each one absolutely stand the test of time, and you can play all of them back to back, and I do. But Forza Horizon 4, really great setting. It's good to see that we can drive around with familiar street signs. I don't know Scotland that well, but
driving on the left.
Yeah, driving on the left, having the street signs that you recognize, see phone boxes and stuff like that. It's cool. It's just really cool. And just aside from the setting, the stuff they added with the seasons, I'm not sure it makes much gameplay difference. I thought it would do, but it just seems more of a visual shift. But that said, it's nice that it's there.
It's so cool, man. It's like every week it will shift through a season, and this is a change, server-based change that affects everyone's game who's playing. And they've made Forza into this online shared world driving game where there are no more like drivatar vehicles. That every vehicle driving around that isn't just a little silly little flesh out the world car is actually driven by a human. And then on the hour, every hour, there are these game modes that pop up. Forzathon, is it? I think it is. That happens that everybody can join in and just get a bunch of they're usually fun and silly, and you can basically just get these massive rewards for doing long jumps and working together as a community. And yes, it's a stunning. The other thing I really like about this situation is how they've done the story stuff. So they have these like sort of contained 10 race or 10 event mini stories. So you've got like the video game streamer one where you got to drive all the different her favorite cars from different video games, for example, in different like challenges and beat the clocks, time trials, jumps and stuff like that. And then you've got you've not seen that one. You have to be level. You must be at the right level for this, but it's fantastic. So there are all these. There's 10 different challenges, and they're 10 cars from different video games over the years, and it's fucking awesome, man. You get to drive these cars in Forza, doing these events that are kind of reminiscent of the kind of driving experience you'd have had from that game. All around this sort of like she's like a video streamer for like this channel, and it's got a really nice setting. And then you've got like the fancy car rental storyline. You've got all these different framing devices basically that open up when you hit certain thresholds and certain levels and things like that around the map. So there's always something to do, literally always something to do. So there's, you can just do street races. If you just want to focus on street races, that will continually open up new street races for you on the map, or off-road, or drag, or drifting. There's literally always something. And then now they've brought in, for the first time ever, the ability to actually craft your own races, not just say change the conditions, but actually alter the route. So you can have this blueprint mode where you can actually plot out races. And of course, the whole community is doing this. It's all connected. It's all shared. So there's literally an infinite amount of content available in this game. Like, it's incredible. It's an incredible suite of features for a driving game.
I mean, that's borne out by me having I've dabbled in that story stuff, but I've done maybe 1 or 2 bits, but I am nearly level 100. So, you know, if I can get to that sort of level and miss all that stuff, that it just shows how
you've been playing it really differently. I mean, that's the thing. You can play the game in literally however you want. For example, you told me you didn't want to do anything until you'd driven on every road because you are a special person.
I am a bit weird like that. Every Forza game that comes out, every Horizon game, I have to clear up the map first, fill in every line.
So bizarre.
Okay. Well, it's just a pain otherwise, isn't it? Because if you do it bit by bit, and then you forget where you've been. And
why does it matter? Why have you got to drive on every road at all?
Because there's an achievement for it.
Oh, right.
So yeah, do that first. Do that first.
Okay, sure. So you've missed out on like the cool video game race challenges and all of that. Did you even done the showcases? You done all the showcases? Have you done the Warthog?
Yeah.
Oh my god, how good is the Halo one?
That's so good.
They're all good though, aren't they? They're all fantastic, those showcases. They are so much fun. I wish there was more of them. If they brought out some DLC of more showcases, that would be super, super cool. Because they're always so over the top. The Halo one this time round, though, when you're in a Warthog and you're like racing to catch a pelican, and they change like elements of the game so that there's banshees flying overhead, and you've got the ring in the distance on the horizon curving around you, and it's like, oh my god, these guys really did Halo. Like, they really did it. And one of the funniest things is, though, when my wife ever watches me driving in this game, first of all, she'll say, do you have to hit everything? And then secondly, it will be, the walls like that wouldn't respond to a car being hit that way. You would be dead. You'd be dead. Because there are bits where you can drift through the stone walls and just watch them like cascade over your car because it's just a funny visual. But that you're racking up, you know, wrecking points or whatever they call it for that as well. And man, there's so much in that game. Just like, it's constantly rewarding you, isn't it? There's constantly bars going up and circles filling in and numbers ticking over.
Mad, yeah, it rewards you for fucking up, basically.
It's a Skinner box of driving experiences. It's like literally like ding 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 ding. Do you want some wheel spins? Here's some wheel spins. Here's some new shoes. Do you like a new hat? Have a car while you're at it. Here's some more money, which you never have a shortage of. Do you always have at least 2 million credits? Yes, you do, but that's fine. Have another 100,000. And it's just like, it's just constantly like rewarding you and thanking you for playing. And it's an incredibly easygoing experience. You literally can't fail at this game. There isn't a lose condition, is there? I mean, everything's a win condition in this game. But it's just such a fun game to put Spotify onto and just bum around. Like, literally I'm just going to hang out. I'm going to drive a little bit. I'm going to see some things. You know, it's beautiful to look at. Depending on what season you're in, you're going to get a different experience as well visually. I think the only real gameplay stuff from that, you mentioned there wasn't a lot. I mean, snow plays differently depending on the car you're in. Definitely plays differently. And then it's mostly in the off-road situations, So if it's like autumn and it's wet, there's less traction. But yeah, I mean, there's only so much.
I was imagining different routes. Like
there is some of that, yeah, because there's the frozen lakes and stuff.
Frozen lake is the big one, but I was imagining there'd be snow drifts that you could drive up onto roofs and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, none of that.
Okay. I mean,
it is really good. I mean, I'm quibbling. The stuff you said about being able to drive through walls and that not responding in a way a real car would. Forza has gone there, you know. I mean, from the original Forza games to the early Forza Horizon games, they were more unforgiving about driving into barriers and walls. And they realized it wasn't as fun to make it more realistic. They've deliberately made it silly and just let you drive through absolutely everything because it's just more enjoyable.
And there is plenty of flexibility. I mean, you can turn off all the assists. You can, you know, put it, you know, to manual steering. You can take off all the driving assists. You can take off your racing lines. You can put damage on. You know, you really can, if you want to make it difficult in the racing bits of the game, not just the open world bits. You can absolutely do that, which is one of the best things about it. And it rewards you for it. The more less assists you have, the more points you make for, you know, placing and winning and stuff like that. But it's an incredible shared experience, and you know, just a fantastic piece of development. I mean, I don't know about you, but it's exciting to think what thing Playground Games is also doing that isn't Forza now. Long rumored that, you know, they have been bought by Microsoft. They have a studio that has been spun up not to make a driving game. So what are they making? You know, with that level of skill and fidelity, I can't wait to see whatever that project might be in 2020 or whatever. So on the next hardware. So it's quite exciting, yeah. But yeah, I always look forward to a new Forza, and this one did not disappoint. Not at all. Not at all. Absolutely fabulous. Okay, I'm going to talk, and it's one of the cool things actually about 2018 in gaming. When I was looking back, I actually am struggling a little bit to really pull out the games that really resonated with me. But then I kind of realized that there's just been so many of at least a good standard. Like there's been a lot fewer terrible games, I think. So it's like the standard in general has gone up across the board. So it less stands out, I guess, in a way because of that. But the coolest thing is that while the AAA games are consistently of a high quality, the indie games, the smaller games, are now reaching this point where, man, these things are really impressive as well. And I'm going to quickly name check a couple. I thought Cultist Simulator was a brilliantly weird, different kind of experience on PC, which is this sort of card game that simulates the idea of creating and running a cult. It's dark. It's mostly text-based and these cards and stuff, and it's all about how they interact. But very peculiar, weird little game. If you want to try it, it's probably in the sale on Steam or whatever. And if you want to try something completely different to everything else we've been talking about, highly recommend checking out Cultist Simulator. Then also we've had an incredible selection of simulation and strategy type games this year on console and on PC. A couple I'd like to mention on console, which is Surviving Mars, which was a fantastic game. It's also on PC. A very serious take on what it would be like to try and colonize Mars in the near future. It's difficult. You've got to manage lots of systems. You've got like oxygen and resources to manage, as well as just trying to get colonists out there, and then their back and forth and their needs as they change, and their psychology as they, you know, loneliness and things like that can set in. That's a really, really cool experience. And then on PC, a game I would like to play it a little bit more, but I haven't had time to, but it is a fantastically cool game, which is Frostpunk, which is this management simulator. It was almost a city sim in which you're trying to sort of survive a post-apocalypse in a kind of a steampunky-esque diesel punk situation, like an alternative, I don't know, mid-1900s place where the whole world is frozen and you're just trying to stay warm and stay alive as the snow and the cold encroaches upon your little enclave of survivors. It's incredibly bleak. You have to make choices where there is no good choice. Like, oh, does this group die or does this group die? Should I sacrifice these people for the betterment of those? However, if I do that, I'm going to have this group turn on me. There's a lot of that. It's like making the best of a bad situation, and then usually being booted out of your own settlement because you're incompetent to die in the frozen wastes. That's how my games usually end in that. Yeah, those have both been fantastic, cool little experiences on PC and console. But there's one here, Richard, that stood. One indie game that has stood out in my mind above all the rest, and it's on your list as well. And that is the perfection of Dead Cells.
Dead Cells.
This is the tightest Metroidvania / roguelite experience I have ever had. The game plays perfectly, and I do mean perfectly. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you've played a few more of these types of games perhaps than I have, Richard, but in my experience, this has got the tightest controls, the most responsive controls of any game of this nature I have played in a long time. And basically, it's all about prioritizing your combat mechanics over animation. So you can roll out of an attack, you can attack out of a roll, you can jump out of a roll. You always feel 100% in control. And what that means is, in these semi-randomized environments that you're fighting your way through, is that any death that happens is on you. You can always, you should play better, basically. It's never a case of it cheats you. It's never a case of it even being too hard. Every situation can be dealt with. You just need to know how to do it. And it's perfection for that. And I don't normally like games like this that much. But man, the art style as well, the music, the sort of tongue-in-cheek story, the branching environments, the unlocks, and that combat, man, That is the best like 20 quid I've ever spent on anything like this year when it comes to an indie. Absolutely fantastic game.
I was a bit late to it.
You were. I had to tell you about it several times, and then finally, I got Hollow Knight. Shut up. This is better.
Hollow Knight is great.
Yes, but this is better.
It deserves a shout out for doing a similar thing, but in a more structured, designed way. So it's much more like a sort of 2D Dark Souls. But Dead Cells obviously has hallmarks of Dark Souls in there. The fact that it sort of procedurally generates each level is a turn off for me. That's why I didn't go into it straight away. But actually, the way that it's done here, it's just, it doesn't feel as accomplished anywhere else as well as Dead Cells does it, because it all feels like a proper designed level, and it's all structured in such a way that even though it's sort of randomly generated, it feels like it's leading somewhere specific. So the levels aren't particularly long. You can get through them in maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And there's a predictable path to the style of level that you're going to get through. So you start off in like sewers or something, and you might move on to more of a castle ramparts level. And it always follows a similar sort of path. So you know whether you're doing well or not by the environments that you're moving through. But it's different. It's a different way to get there every time. And what's so important in Dead Cells is the excellent combat design in making it a fair challenge to get through these changing environments in sort of meaningful way. To the gameplay actually means something. It's not just you get lucky or you don't. Like Spelunky and stuff like that has felt punishing at times because you'll just get chucked into a really bad draw. It's never really like that. Every level feels fair, and the combat is effective enough that you always feel like you've got a fair shot at doing it. And even if you do fail, it doesn't feel wasted. The mechanic of going back and investing those cells in extra health, extra strength, extra upgrades to your equipment, you always feel like you're building up to a better performance next time. And I put quite a lot of time into Dead Cells, more than I thought I would. So yeah, definitely top tier for 2018.
Oh, it's incredible. Even if you're not a Metroidvania, even if you're not into your roguelites, and there's so bloody many of them now. There's so many games that have that permadeath, punishing, restart kind of mechanic. Even then, the combat is so satisfying.
Yes.
There's so many different combinations of weapons and gadgets you can take with you on the runs, which you'll find around the environment, which you can unlock with that kind of permanent currency that you get from beating or dying in a level. There are certain things that you do keep with you, which you can then use to unlock things at the shops and the vendors, the cells of the game. Even then, it just feels great, and it's so much fun experimenting. Like, I was trying out different combinations of weapons and like ones I wouldn't normally play with, and being just like, oh god damn, that's so cool, that's so much fun to use. And then you're like really eager when you see it come up again, like, oh man, I use that sword again. That was killer on my last run that I had it was so good. And I've avoided the meta. I've avoided looking up best ways of doing this, or how to do this secret, or how to beat that. I've just really enjoyed throwing myself against that wall, usually failing, usually not getting very far, but always learning something, always getting better, always getting a little bit more knowledge. And I think the way that's dealt out, that it's interesting, because normally, like I say, it's the story, it's the characters, and while they're pretty good in this game, they're quite amusing, and they dole out little bits of it and hints of the world. It's not that keeps me coming back this time. It's the gameplay, because the gameplay is possibly the best of this type ever. So yeah, it's just incredible. Really high up my list. That, like, absolutely. It's so weird when you're looking at my list and think, oh, would I put Dead Cells or Tetris higher? And it's like, Tetris. I'm still kind of amazed how good that is in 2018, but yeah, it is true. Did you want to mention Hollow Knight just because it's of this genre?
I think it deserves part of the same discussion. As I say, it's superficially similar in that it's a 2D Metroidvania game. The combat is not as accomplished as Dead Cells. It feels a bit light and simplified to begin with. That does open up later on as you unlock more skills. It is quite stingy with what it gives you in the beginning. It doesn't even give you a map. Even when you've got the map, it doesn't tell you where you are on it. So it takes a little bit of time for you to get the basics of a Metroidvania game under your belt. But once you've got over that hump, and it's not a very big one, once you've got over that hump, it becomes a really well-designed Metroidvania experience with undertones of Dark Souls. So the idea is you go through this miniaturized underground world where everything is a variation on different insects. There's sort of wasps and flies and all sorts of grotesque looking creatures, but in a sort of slightly cartoonified, miniaturized way. So I don't want to say that they look cute. They don't, but it has a softer edge to it than Dark Souls did. And it's sort of drawn in a 2D cartoon style that has, it's sort of a weird balance, but so it does feel oppressive, even though it looks sort of cartoony at the same time. It is like Dark Souls in the sense that you really do feel worried about edging too far forward. There's lots of sections where if you haven't got a torch or you haven't got a light power, you're just going through almost pitch blackness, and it's terrifying to think what might happen to you next, because like Dark Souls, as soon as you encounter something that you can't defeat, either because it's too strong for you or you haven't got the right skills, you're going to lose all of your collected experience to that point that you haven't yet spent on additional skills, and you've got to work your way back to that part of the map, possibly without even having the physical map yet, to try and recover what you've lost. And that is really interesting to me, that you can have this sort of 2D cartoon environment that feels oppressive and imposing at the same time. So that was great, but just the richness of the world is fantastic. There's so much in this for you to discover. Similar to what I was saying about Tomb Raider, there's just this, you'll see little parts of the map that just stand out, as with the best Metroidvania games. You'll see things that don't look quite right, and you'll explore further and realize there's a whole other area, like huge areas that are locked off by a simple few pixels being knocked with a weapon. And if you don't take the time to explore the area properly, you would miss entire massive sections that are just so well detailed with loads of stuff in them to find. I've probably put 25 hours, 30 hours into it almost, and I don't know if I'm near the end of it yet, because it's I'm playing on the Switch and it's got all of the DLC. I think there's 3 or 4 different additional DLC segments that are added into it. I don't know where the main game finishes and the DLC starts, but there's just so much there to find and do. It's just really, really rewarding. So probably not as immediate as Dead Cells. I mean, that's probably more your style, because you can just drop in and drop out of Dead Cells and get something out of it. Hollow Knight is a bit more of a dedicated, involved sort of title that you need to set some time aside for.
It's interesting what you mentioned. Like one of the big things you said about Hollow Knight there was that it's this cartoony style that still conveys oppression and disquiet, and that sounds great on paper, and I find that as a fascinating concept. However, I know I would not enjoy it. Like it's just not for me. The closest I come to enjoying a proper Dead Cells style, Dead Souls type game, Dark Souls type game. There we go, got the in there. Is Ashen, which just came out in Game Pass on Xbox, and it's kind of like that. But I'm enjoying that. It's a bit more accessible, perhaps, and that's a really interesting experience. Not worth mentioning for Game of the Year, but worth mentioning for something else that I've got on my list that kind of ties into Game of the Year, which is Game Pass.
Game Pass. Yes.
I just want to it started off this year for me with the feeling of this is great, but it's probably not for me, because I've already got a lot of games and I buy a lot of games. But as the year's gone on, the value of this thing has just skyrocketed. It has become something which I would say everybody who has an Xbox, you'd be mad not to have this. Like, honestly, it is incredible. The games that are now coming out, day and date release in Game Pass, aren't just Xbox games, and they're included in this. Like, they've just done a bunch over Christmas. Things like Mutant Year Zero, I just mentioned Ashen. They've just come out, they put Hellblade, and there was Sacrifice in there after a short time onto Game Pass. That wasn't a day and date, but it's still incredible. And there's more and more support coming for it from the third-party developers as they realize that this could be a really important new way of players experiencing their games. I have no idea what the revenue situation is and how Microsoft pays these developers and these publishers. I hope it's good. I hope that they do well out of it. And Phil has gone on record as saying that people with Game Pass actually buy more games. They don't buy less games, they buy more games because games don't always stay in Game Pass. So there's an element of, and they warn you if they're leaving. So you then get potentially, depending on how long it's been in Game Pass, you can get like a discount on the purchase, which I think is a very, very smart business model. And it's become a must-have. I'm completely sold on it.
Discounts on DLC for games that have just come into Game Pass.
Do you really? You get discounts on the DLC as well?
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
The Forza Horizon 4 DLC is all discounted.
And that's not part of the winter sale or anything. That's
that's for Game Pass subscribers.
Game Pass subscribers. Well, that's very clever, isn't it? But the idea of buying DLC for a game you don't own, that's weird to me. However,
is that ever going to leave Game Pass though?
Well, you don't know, do you? I mean, if it's a first party game, I suspect not. It'd be much more risky if you're going for third party games and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think just from that, even if you're not like a person that subscribes continuously, the ability to say, oh, there's a game coming into Game Pass in March, I'd like to try that. You just get a month subscription.
Yeah,
it's basically you're paying for a rental, but you're paying £7, $7.99 or $10 or whatever for a rental for a month for like 150 games. Or like it'll be 200 games by then, probably. It's an incredibly good value, and you're going to try stuff that you would never normally play.
They're quite clever about the stuff that they put in there. I mean, there are big titles in there that you'll never get to the end of. I mean, like Master Chief Collection, you could be playing for 2 years and still have stuff to do in that. But they're very clever about putting in shorter experiences, so it always feels like you've got your money's worth, and you don't worry about that leaving Game Pass in the next couple of months because you've sort of picked it up, you've done it, and it feels like really good value because you can get through in a month. Maybe, I don't know, even if you're just playing casually, you might get through a couple of games, 2 or 3 games that justify the cost of the subscription alone. And if you're really into your games, you might get, like I do, just power through like 5, 6, 7 games that you might have bought anyway. Something like Ashen is something that I probably would have bought.
Yep, same for me. And Mutant Year Zero, 100% my kind of game. So it's like, oh yeah, tactical combat, crazy sci-fi post-apocalypse. Yeah, I would have bought that. But now I've got it on Game Pass, And the other thing is that the subscriptions are often reduced. I mean, I think there's still a promotion right now. If you can get it for £1 if you've never tried it before, for a month. That's incredible. And there's so many games on there that are worth trying, but even then, as a monthly cost, it's not really a lot. Or you can get the 6 months, or you can get the
I've got a year
the yearly subscriptions.
Price. I've just seen another advert on the Xbox dashboard today saying a third off for another 6 months. So it's not like they limit it to people who've lapsed. There's offers going on for
constantly. I don't think I've ever paid full price for it, ever.
Even at full price, it's a good deal.
It is, and it has become this really important part of the Xbox ecosystem, which going forward, I think is going to become a real huge element. If the rumors of the diskless Xbox are true, without a disk drive coming out next year, that it's all about digital, that's gonna be all about Game Pass. I imagine you're buying that, you're probably getting a decent sub in there as well for Game Pass, something like a 6-monther in there as part of the cost of buying the console or something to push adoption of digital, as the buying habits have moved this generation much more towards digital. Yes, Microsoft made that initial stumble of trying to make it an always online digital focused console at launch. They stepped back from that, but what they've done in this generation is actually just made people want to do that.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly. I
kind of
think
like
their mistake wasn't in doing it. Their mistake was in
that's
talking
how they
about
did
it.
it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they've succeeded. You know, I mean, it's crazy the amount of digital sales now. I mean, the one thing I wanted to mention about I just talking about digital, kind of connected, but I picked up Tomb Raider in that sale. But I picked up Tomb Raider like it was reduced after like 2 weeks of it being out. So I was kind of amazed at that, but I'm going to play Tomb Raider. I wanted to just touch on that. I'm looking forward to playing Tomb Raider. I just need to carve out the time. But yeah, I mean, that's the kind of game that you could see on Game Pass pretty quick. Another game that I had on my list, but I took off because I wanted to mention it because it was a really cool experience that was on Game Pass after a while was Onrush, which I really struggled to recommend at full price. But then, you know, there was a deep discount sale, and then like a month or two later, Game Pass. And it's like that's perfect for that type of game. That game now will have some legs. It might still have players, you know, because of
PlayStation
that
Plus
system.
this month as well.
And there you go. So PlayStation Plus. So what we're seeing is these new ways of supporting games that don't necessarily resonate immediately at launch, because the market is a busy one and a saturated one for a lot of these experiences. But yeah, I've got 3 games left on my list that are all quick ones I want to touch upon, 2 of which are also on your list, Rich. They're kind of the B tier, you know, 2 of these, but they're both really interesting experiences, which were Vampyr or Vampyr. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce that. And Call of Cthulhu, 2 very different horror games that came out this year. It was steeped in style, some really good ideas, perhaps a missed execution in gameplay, but story-wise, character-wise, you know, world, really interesting experiences. Is there anything you wanted to mention about them?
Yeah, Cthulhu, I was a little disappointed with it myself. I think it what can I say about it? I think I was probably expecting more than I should have done, because it was always going to be sort of B tier production. But in terms of sound design, graphics, voice acting, it was a bit hokey, some of it, and that was a shame, because reading, I've read a bit of the Necronomicon, and you know, the world that you can imagine, it wasn't quite borne out by this game. There wasn't quite enough visually on display for me to be horrified by, and certainly what was there wasn't graphically that impressive for me to think, you know, for me to really get into the world. It was just, I don't know. What did you think? I sort of meandered my way through it and thought, yeah, that was pretty good. It was pretty good, but yeah, it didn't quite get me in my gut and make me think that, you know, really get to the core of what Lovecraft is, and that's about questioning reality. And yeah, it didn't quite really go there for me.
I'm still waiting for that. Anything really, that book, well, not book obviously, but sorry, film, TV show, game that really encapsulates those feelings that you get from the Lovecraft's source material. You know, the uneasiness, the like you say, questioning reality.
What was the GameCube one?
Existential horror.
Yeah. What was the GameCube one?
Eternal Darkness.
Eternal
I'm sure
Darkness,
that's what you're
it.
referencing. Yeah, as everybody does. But you know, it's probably not as good as you think it was. I mean,
probably not these days, but at the
it
time,
played a couple of tricks. It played a couple of tricks on you as the player, dealing with things like saves and stuff like that. You know, stuff that you couldn't get away with now because the hardware is so much more locked down, and you know, there's certain like rules that all the developers have to abide by when releasing a game. But no, I think Call of Cthulhu was a cool idea, quite well executed, but yeah, it didn't stick the landing, and it didn't quite bring. It starts much better than it finishes, that game. Like, so much better. It's got a really good opening and a really strong beginning, but yeah, it tapers off pretty hard once you get to a certain point in the sort of midpoint. And what do you think about Vampyr? I liked Vampyr a lot. I think, again, it was a really cool world, really interesting. Kind of the Don't Nod B team make those. The guys who made Remember Me. As a third-person sort of action adventure game with some RPG elements and some interesting choice mechanics, I thought it was cool. It was cool. Worth mentioning.
Yeah, I put a lot of time into Vampyr. You know that Xbox year in review thing? Vampyr was my most played game, apparently.
Jesus, wow.
which I was surprised by. I put a lot of hours.
That was
into
horribly broken, that thing. So I don't know how much you can trust it, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, well, whether it was right or not, I do remember putting a lot of hours into Vampyr and not quite finishing it because it, like Cthulhu, tapers off horribly at the end.
Yeah.
I've not gone back to finish it yet. I think that there's a big part of Vampyr's attraction, which is in choosing to be the good guy, because there's quite a lot of moral choices in there about whether you want to sort of help society, and because you're a doctor who's turned into a vampire, you've got this horrible dichotomy of whether you need to survive, whether you're going to kill these people for your own benefit. The more people you kill, the greater experience you get and the more powerful you are. That's only boosted by killing people who are more familiar to you. So if you spent a great deal of the game getting to know people, doing subquests for them, listening to their dialogue and just getting to know who they are, they'll be more valuable to you if you kill them at that point. So there's a great tension there in theory, and it did keep that illusion going for quite a while for me. But there was a point in it where it sort of forced my hand and something happened that I didn't intend to happen, and it sort of unraveled who I wanted my character to be and sort of undid the world building that it worked so hard to achieve. So I bounced off it at the end, and I was disappointed to the point that I've now murdered half of everyone in London. I thought, fine, if she's going to die, everyone can die. So I've just killed everybody and then not gone back.
Ah, the typical vampire story.
Yeah.
Try to be good, realizes you can't, murder everyone. Love it.
But yeah, up until then.
I mean, the difference with me was when I was playing it, I was just murdering everybody to start with.
Well,
so.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Oh, I didn't think you would be. Quickly touch on my one sports game on my list here. That was kind of would have been in the multiplayer category because it's a really good version this year. I won't go into detail because Richard will fall asleep. But that's F1 2018. Fantastic example of this franchise this year. Probably the best on this hardware on the current generation. A great representation of the sport. Deeper than it's ever been before on this generation. Fantastic racing, just really, really, really good wheel-to-wheel racing in this particular game. Highly, highly, highly recommend this if you're interested in Formula One at all. And yeah, you can probably get, I think it's on sale in the winter sale right now on pretty much every platform. So it's probably like 20 quid. So well worth picking up at that price. Anything you wanted to quickly touch upon as we're coming to the end here, Richard, I think?
Monster Hunter World.
Yep. I played this. I didn't really get on with it, but okay.
Well, I did. And I've tried to get into Monster Hunter 2 or 3 times before this and always not been able to penetrate into why people think Monster Hunter's good. But I get it now. Monster Hunter World has achieved it. It's got me in by simplifying a lot of the busy work that the previous titles made you do. So you don't need to carry around quite so many consumables. A lot of it's in there as standard now. So being able to sharpen your weapon, it's just something that you do. You haven't got to go around looking for things to pick up to help you do it. Like whetstones, I think, used to be a consumable item. They've just made it much more accessible. And that's not to say it's simple. There's still loads in there. And I probably put 30 hours in and hardly scratched the surface. There is still a hell of a lot of grind in there to sort of repeatedly kill the same monsters and to get the drops that you need to build the armor that you want, to take on ever more powerful monsters. But I finally understand what people get into Monster Hunter for, and there is so much in there. I think if you were into this, I still would be. So it's only because other stuff has sort of come along and there's no one else that I know that plays it.
I might go back. I might go back
good.
Because guest character speciality Geralt is being put into it.
Is he?
Yeah, they're putting Jerry from The Witcher into Monster Hunter World. So I might go back because of that, because I think that's weird and fun. So I might
They've
check
done
that out.
some weird crossovers. I think they've put Ryu from Street Fighter.
Yeah,
in
they did. Yeah, that's very strange.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got a couple more on your list. Did you want to shout out to them as well, or do you want to do some summations?
I'd put a couple on there before I'd actually played them. Thinking, well, I will play these by Christmas. So Smash Brothers Ultimate, Pokemon Let's Go on Switch. I've put a reasonable amount of time into Smash Brothers. That is still Smash Brothers. Slightly disappointing that it doesn't have the main attraction for me, because I always used to like the collectible little figures that you could get. Do you remember those?
No.
All the way through Smash Brothers, there's always been a way to sort of win collectible little, almost like amiibos, but in game.
You are so weird about your collecting stuff.
No, I know, but like it's the fan service thing. Smash Brothers is all about all the different Nintendo characters coming together, and there was always a load of little collectible figurines that you could collect in game and see them all as part of a big collection, and it was really cool to just see these 3D models and rotate.
But you can just go and buy them for real now, can't you?
I end up doing that, but yeah, they've taken that out of Smash Brothers and turned it more into sort of collectible card thing. So instead of the figures, you get cards that you can use within the matches themselves to give you buffs and whatever. So
2 out of 10.
Yeah, it's still a good game, but yeah, I was bummed out by that. Okay. Pokemon Let's Go. I've not played too much of it yet, but I do have that Pokeball controller, and that is fantastic.
You've got a problem. Did you get got the NES controllers as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Are they as useless as they look?
Yes. They're better than I expected.
Oh wow, okay.
They're better.
Low bar.
I did nearly cancel them, and then thought, well,
I thought, I don't need money. Yeah. Money's for people who aren't going through Brexit. Why would I want to keep that?
It's only money. And then when Brexit does happen, I can sort of go back.
You can barter them for food. Yes. Yeah. Sensible. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm gonna do now is gonna put you on the spot. I want your top 3 games of the year, please. Or top 3 things, because I kind of didn't just stick to games today. But yeah, I went top 3. Do you want me to go first? What do you think?
No, I think I'm pretty set on my top 3 actually.
Okay. Are you gonna put them in order? Or are you just gonna give me 3?
I think Celeste number 3.
Yeah.
Shadow of the Tomb Raider number 2, and God of War number 1.
Well, I think our lists are different then. That's interesting. So I'm gonna go with oh, this is actually really hard. Okay, I'm gonna go with in 3rd place, Dead Cells. In 2nd place, Spiderman, and in 1st place, Tetris Effect. So yeah,
so no repetition between our lists at all.
But both very strong lists, I think. Very, very strong lists. I'm surprised you didn't pick a Dead Cells. I am quite surprised you didn't go for that.
I really like Dead Cells, but I think in this sort of 2D environment, Celeste hooked me more.
Okay.
Which you haven't played yet, but
gonna play.
I'm not sure if you're gonna like it as much as I do, but I love.
Oh, no, I think I love a lot. I love a Super Meat Boy. Fair but challenging. I can get behind in control schemes. It's like that sounds like I would enjoy that. So that brings us to the end of the discussion of the games. I just want to look back a little bit now at Bxb in general in 2018. First of all, I wanted to thank some people for their contributions. Joel, if you're out there, if you're listening, he was with us for quite a while. We had him as a member of the team until about halfway through 2018. Family stuff, did what family stuff does. He had another baby. You had to prioritize, and we understand, but we miss you, Joel. Thank you so much for your PC and PS4 predominantly contributions. So a bit of everything. Like me, you have all the platforms, and like Richard. But yeah, the door, sir, is always open for you to return. And sort of connected to that, after Joel left, we were very fortunate to get hold of Chris, and also known as the Humble Gamer, which has a YouTube channel and a Twitch channel, and he's currently. He was fantastic, brilliant PC coverage, brilliant videos. Absolutely loved what he did for us. and great on the podcast too, much like Joel was. And we miss you dearly, Chris. But once again, he's reevaluating his interest in gaming. I can understand that. He spent 5 years streaming and stuff, and it's just a shame we met him so late on, as it were, where he got a bit too much like work. And I can understand that. We've all dealt with that, I think, over the years. And he's just reevaluating. He's not done. He's not quit forever. He may well return. And if he ever comes back to gaming, Chris, we'd love to have you back, wouldn't we, Richard? So yeah,
yes, we would.
Same to both of you guys. Richard, don't go. First of all, and then Chris and Joel, if you ever want to come back, guys, you are welcome to return. And then in summation, the year has been interesting. Podcast still doing really well. YouTube has really taken off. Like viewerships are doing, viewing of the reviews doing really well, and the video content does very well on YouTube. Yeah, so I mean, in general, 2018 has been a good year for games and a pretty good year for Bxb. What do you think, Rich? Anything you wanted to bring up looking back?
Yeah, I think it's been much better for the video and sort of media content than the writing, which is unfortunate since most of my content is writing.
But... and always so fucking good. Like, it really bums me out that people aren't reading it. But that leads us into reality,
though.
Yeah, it is. But that leads us into where we're going in 2019. So looking at what is happening at Bxb, we are going to be rebranding. We are going to have a new name and a new look, new logo. I won't be announcing that right now, will we, Rich? Because we're working on that, we're beavering away. But that will coincide with, you might start to see these changes actually in the content that we produce before then. The thing me and Richard really enjoy is this: sitting down, having a chat, talking about video games, the two of us, right? So with that in mind, we're going to bring some of that podcast spirit to all of our content. So we're going to be doing reviews in a different way. They aren't going to be reviews in a traditional sense. We're not going to be doing scores anymore. Think of them more as impressions, and they're going to be more conversational. So we're going to try and do it so that for every game we cover on the site with these impressions, the two of us will have a conversation about the game. These could be anything from 5 minutes to 15 minutes, that kind of window of length. And will often be over video footage of the game, whoever is leading the impression. So Richard might sometimes lead the impression. He'll capture some footage. I will have a chat with him about it. We'll ask him some questions and just discuss the game in general and get our vibes about it that way. For all intents and purposes, you're going to get the same information from this as you would from a review, but it's less formal. It's more enjoyable for us to produce, and it'll be more enjoyable, I think, for you guys to watch and to listen to. And these reviews, I keep calling them reviews, not reviews. These impressions will go up as audio, and they will also go up on the YouTube channel as well. That's most of the stuff there, isn't it, Rich? Have I forgotten anything?
No, I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, we'll be, well, pretty much to rehash what you said, focusing more on the content that people obviously want to see. So more podcasts, more videos, and just presenting it in a way that people want to digest it nowadays. So old people can change, I think, can't they?
Sorry? Old people can change?
Old people can change their ways.
We try. We do try and adapt. I mean, the other thing I was thinking about is streaming. I just don't know, because it's like you have to just talk the whole time by yourself while playing a game. I just don't know if that works. If we could work out a way of doing it together, maybe, but maybe we need to look at the technology behind that and what the ways we can make that work. But the main thing is it's just going to be a bit more chill.
Other than me moving to Cambridge.
Well, it's a nice place to live. I'm just saying, it's a nice place to live. We may have some returning old voices and faces coming back. That's possible. And that's quite exciting. But I'm in discussions with people's agents right now about their return. But yeah, it's exciting because we're going to come back with a new name and a new look and a new attitude. This might well be the last ever episode of Bxb'S Bits and Bobs. We'll have to talk about how we're going to go forward, because the way these impressions are going to go out, they're almost going to be like mini podcasts, but they're just going to be a podcast focused on one game. So when we want to talk about things like news and like topics and maybe stuff that isn't getting covered game wise directly, we'll still have a podcast, but I think they'll be shorter, and I think it may be more frequent, but we'll just have to look at how that works and what name we're going to choose for that and how we're going to get it to you guys. It'll definitely be on YouTube like this is. It'll almost certainly be up in audio in one way or another as well. So yeah, just more stuff coming. By all means, give us some feedback. Are you going to horribly miss the scores? I don't think our silly star system needs to keep going, but if you desperately still do want that, let me know. I'll take it into consideration. We'll see what we can do. But I think I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast. I think the way critics and reviewers look at stuff is becoming less relevant if you're sticking to sort of a rigid system. People like us, we need to reflect the way in which people want to consume and look at critical response. It doesn't necessarily need to be about, oh, sound is a 3, visuals are a 4, gameplay is a 5. That's not relevant anymore. At least I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either. I mean, it harks back to the early days of video game criticism and the time when it was viewed more of a journalistic practice, I guess, because you had to buy a magazine to read that stuff, and it was seen as more of a profession. And we've had enough of experts.
Well, yeah, the only thing that makes us experts, I say with rabbit ears inverted commas, is that we've been doing this a really long time. Yeah. I mean, we've played a lot of games. I mean, but then again, so have you. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's not that. Let's just have a conversation. Let's just talk about it. That's all it comes down to, and that's what me and Richard love, isn't it? We love playing and talking about video games. So let's do more talking about it. That's what that's kind of the mindset here, isn't it? So me and you, the best bit of the every 2 weeks is we do a podcast. Yeah. So let's do more of that. That seems fun for you and fun for us. So, but open to feedback, open to ideas from anybody and everybody. We're on Twitter and Facebook and all the usual places. Names are going to change, but we're not going anywhere. But yeah, that's exciting. I don't have a time frame for this. I mean, it's quiet as all hell right now when it comes to actual game releases and stuff. But we'll try the new format with the first game me and Richard thinks deserves being covered in some way, won't we? So looking forward to it. I will say there's something really cool coming with some preview content, hopefully in the next sort of couple of weeks, but I don't really
I nearly said then, but I'm not allowed to say, am I?
No, I don't really want to spoil it because you never know, it might not happen, but I'm proper excited about this if it happens, and that'll be all over the channels in many ways, probably. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Fingers crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed. I'm doing research for something right now, put it that way, so it should be good. But yeah, that's coming. On the next podcast or whatever it is, we'll look forward to 2019 properly and talk about the games maybe that are coming up that we're excited about. Whatever that podcast is called when it comes out. It could still be Bits and Bobs, but we could just be something else, Bits and Bobs, or just Bits and Bobs. I don't know. But yeah, lots of changes, lots of stuff. No time frame exactly, but it's going to be probably in the calendar month of January, I suspect. Things will start happening. But yeah, cool stuff, eh? You excited, Rich?
Exciting
I'm quite excited about this. Yeah, I'm excited about this new direction. It's going to be cool.
New year, new start. Looking forward to it.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? So that brings us to the end of Bxb'S Bits and Bobs episode 60. You had a nice time, Rich?
Yeah, I think so. I'm feeling slightly the worse for wear, having only had one whiskey last night and going to bed before midnight. So I don't know what that's about. I feel like I should have wasted myself a bit more to justify feeling like this.
Yeah, I had a lot more than one. I didn't get to bed till 1 in the morning or so, and I'm feeling that's the dark glasses. Yeah, it's all too bright and loud. Everything, but yeah, that was the potentially the final ever Bxb'S Bits and Bobs episode. So we'll be back in January, like a chameleon. No, like a what changes? Like a caterpillar into a new butterfly.
A maggot.
Nice. I don't want to be a maggot. Shut up. Bye.
Bye.